Welcome to the next episode of Squats and Seances. Today we are chatting with Thomas Wurm. Thomas is a visionary healer and entrepreneur with a unique background that blends 15 years of wildlife fire service with his expertise in alternative healing. As the founder of Mountain Mind Tricks, he has dedicated his life to empowering others on their healing journeys. Thomas is a master practitioner in NLP, hypnosis, and mental and emotional release, as well as certified in Reiki and ancient Hawaiian healing arts. Welcome, Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here with you and your audience.
Oh, I'm very excited to chat today. A little bit more I was going to share here. At Mountain Mind Tricks, it says that you provide breakthrough sessions and sacred energy healing with integration to help clients heal their mind, body, and spirit. He believes that everyone possesses the natural ability to heal from anything, and his holistic approach releases the root cause in the mind so the body can heal. I'm very excited to talk about that today. Often in these circles, I'm hearing a lot of the opposite, which is energy trauma stored in the body, addressing the body, and then the mind can function. So I really am curious to talk today about the reverse of that. Before we get into all of the good, juicy parts, the first question that I ask every new guest on the podcast is, what does the word gritty mean to you?
Yeah, actually, I kind of love that word because, as a wildland firefighter for so long, I kind of came from the grit, sleeping in the dirt and eating MREs and being out in the wilderness for 2 weeks at a time. To me, it's that actually, it's kind of the art of suffering and learning to find your power in that deep place. Yeah.
The art of suffering. I love asking guests this question because the answers are all over the spectrum. So
Right.
many different things to different people. All right, let's get into this. Let's talk about you, your background. I want to go back to your beginning, the 5 whys, if you will: when, where, why, who, what, your journey to self-actualization. Where did that really begin? Sounds like you have a very interesting crossover, civil service, and now another type of service, but in a completely different arena. So can you tell us a little bit of your backstory?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we got to go back to when I was about 15, and maybe even a little bit farther back than that. Is as a young man, preteen, teenage years, I was a really angry person. Like, I was hanging out with the wrong crowds, and what I'll say is that it led me into a near death experience when I was about 15. And I never really thought it was until I started researching like Raymond Moody's work and like hearing other people's cases. But my experience was, I was a very troubled teen. And during this near death experience, I just went into this darkness, this blackness, like this nothingness. And there was so much peace that, I really thought I died, but I wasn't really sure what was happening to me. And so the thing that really convinced me later is that I was, failing out of high school. I was like hanging out with all the wrong crowds. I was in just a really dark place. And then overnight, I was obsessive about like what just happened to me. And I started getting into meditation. And I never read a book for school, but then I was reading like 2 or 3 books a week on Buddhism, on Taoism, on meditation, on like all this crazy stuff, right? And I started going to Kung Fu and Tai Chi, and like I started getting 4.0s. Literally, all of this happened overnight, basically.
Oh,
And so by the time I graduated high school, I decided to go into wildland firefighting with the Forest Service. And so I think a lot of that opening kind of fell asleep again. And so as I went through my fire career, I went through a lot of, I traveled to every Western state. I have fought fire just about everywhere, around houses, in the middle of the mountains, like flying in helicopters, you name it, I've probably done it in fire. And so I learned so much. And as we kind of, I would just say there was a lot of trauma and learning. Let's just put it that way, right? And we can definitely go deeper into that. And around 2015, my like best friend, supervisor, person that was really close to me passed away suddenly. And he was around 40 years old and passed away from a sudden heart attack, which unfortunately, this is in the fire service very common.
Interesting. Okay.
And so I remember when I heard the news, like I literally collapsed to the ground, like it crushed me.
Yeah.
And so, the next 6 months after that, I wasn't really sure, I was a tough fire guy, right? Like there was no processing. I just started drinking, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I really spiraled. And about 6 months to a year later, my body was torn apart from all the drinking. Like my mind, I was just, all of a sudden, this grief had pulled up all of my baggage to the surface. And I was in a very bad place, very dark space. And during this time, I kind of went back to that like 15-year-old Thomas, like, well, I don't really know what to do besides meditate, right? So I started doing some meditations and during this time I was really in a dark place. And so mm, I was in this deep meditation and I asked out loud, like, I didn't really know what I was doing. I just said, universe, will you open my third eye? Right. I didn't really know what I was saying. And then, as a lot of people describe, I'm sure you've heard it on your show before, it was like as if I stepped into a wind tunnel and I was just absolutely just shot out of my body.
Yeah.
And so I had an out of body experience that, we can go deeper into. When I came back into my body, everything was different. I was seeing energy. I had all of these, my body was even worse. I mean, it felt like God electrocuted me basically.
Yeah.
So now I'm like pretty convinced I'm dying. Like that's the only thing I'm dead. Like I don't know where else to
Right.
go from here. And
Right.
so my journey of healing, I didn't really know what to do at this point. I'm seeing energy, I'm hearing voice, like just
You
losing
probably thought
every
you were losing your mind.
100%, right? So I knew like, well, if I go to a Western doctor, that's not going to go well. So I tried acupuncture. That was like my first step in. And when the needles went to my body, it was like my body was shaking for like an hour. It was like, the acupuncture was like, oh, there's so much trauma. It's just like wind in your body, right? So that was kind of step one. And as I worked with this acupuncturist I met, he really helped me. And he also did a lot of shamanic work and hypnosis with
Oh,
me. And so for about a year, he really helped my kundalini experience, the out of body experience, settle into my body. And then he introduced me to NLP, the neuro linguistic programming. And so I went to training and, it just kind of snowballed into all these modalities that I'm doing now. And what I can say is when I experienced mental emotion release technique for the first time, this kind of flagship NLP release of, major emotions, it changed my life immediately. I mean, instantaneously, I felt a huge shift in my body. I felt, oh my God, all the fear is gone. Oh my God, I can breathe again. Right. So I would say that's where like my huge transformations really started happening is with the NLP. And as I progressed on that path, I stepped into more of the Huna energy healing, the Hawaiian energy healing arts. And, because as the more I released, like so many more of my gifts came online, and the deeper I went to the unconscious healing, wow, all my gifts really came online. So now, you know, I'm I don't know, I have all the clairvoyance, right? Or the
yeah.
sight, the
All the
hearing,
clairs.
all of them, all the clairs.
Yeah.
And that was hard to integrate, right?
Mhm.
There's a lot of layers there. So I'm happy to go deeper anywhere you want to.
Oh, thank you for sharing. That's a really powerful backstory and so many things that came up that I want to ask about.
Yeah.
The first one is the physiologic component for firefighters. And is it wildland firefighters in particular, or any firefighter prone to cardiovascular events like atherosclerosis, heart attacks, strokes, things like that?
Yeah, I'm not too sure on the city side. I haven't like done the research, but on the wildland side, to be really clear for folks, they're absolutely totally different, right? We're not doing car accidents, we're not doing EMT stuff on a regular basis. We're
Yeah.
getting flown into the wilderness for 10 days or boated in somewhere, right? And so the thing that I think most people don't understand is that a wildland firefighter basically, like when you're on the line, well, they've done a lot of research, like people swallowing sensors and measuring all like the heat index of your body and like your metabolism and all these things. So some of that research has shown that basically the firefighters are riding a Tour de France every day.
Yeah. Okay.
And so
That's what I was thinking. I
so
just want to.
there's the physiological of overtraining endurance. There's
Mm.
part of that. There's also the toxin, the heavy metals accumulate in the heart on top of the stress. So there's just like there's a whole bunch of stuff on top of,
Mhm.
we'll just say it, being a government employee is just spiritual abuse. It's the
Yeah.
employer does so much to the fire folks, and there's a whole, if you want to learn more,
Mhm.
grassroots Wildland Firefighters is super important organization. So there's so many aspects to it, but yeah, it's super common. It's suicide, heart attack, way more common than the stuff in the field, unfortunately.
I'll make sure to include a link for the reference that people, if they want to go and do more research about how to support or what can be done to help
Yeah.
these individuals, that would be great. Can you say the name of it one more time?
Yeah,
Grassland?
so there's two. There's grassroots wildland
Grassroots.
firefighters. They're like more congressional kind of laws stuff, and then Wildland Firefighter Foundation is actually one of the best ways to support, because they really help people that have gotten injured,
Mhm.
fatalities, and the families. Like they do so much. I could talk an hour about that. So yeah,
Awesome.
I'll send those to you.
Thank you. At what point after your colleague passed and you had this experience through meditation, which I'm just going to say is the biggest common thread throughout every conversation I have ever had in this podcast: meditation,
Mm,
meditation. No matter where your background, no matter what you were going through, that is like the gateway for people that are seeking and finding peace and happiness with the present moment. So I'm so
mm.
stoked that you mentioned that. At what point did you decide, I'm done with this wildland firefighter gig and I'm just going to go into helping other people heal in the way that worked for you?
Yeah, what's so funny? You're gonna laugh at this. Is after my Kundalini experience and all of this stuff that was going on, like I was hiding this even from my wife, from my coworkers, and I actually stayed in for another 5 years.
Oh, wow.
So as I was healing, I actually about 3 years later, I started. Let me rewind a little bit. My first experience with mental emotion release, like when I released fear, it was as if God's voice came through and was like, "You're gonna do this to other people." I was like, "Uh-oh." Right? Are you sure?
Yes, I know what you're talking about. That was when I got the message that I'm going to do a podcast. And I thought,
Yeah.
I don't think you have the right person.
So that was about like 2018, 19. So then I started to really like build my business and on the side. And I would say as things progressed, like my gifts just started opening up. So I started having these experiences on fires where it was like, I'm, yeah, we're just going to go all the way. We're going to go all the way. In that, like, my consciousness would like drop into the ground, into the mycelium, and I could talk to the whole forest and like, hey, can I talk to the tree that's like way up in the mountains and look at this fire that's like a mile away from me? And I would get all this intel from the trees, or put
Wow.
my consciousness into a hawk and like look at different perspectives, or speak to the fire, right? So I started having these like shamanic elemental experiences, like I'm not a good firefighter anymore. Right. So I
Oh,
would say that,
fascinating.
yeah, so it really, my gifts started coming online so much. And for me, I'll tell you, the moment when I was like, I'm done. I got to be done with this, is that we got a fire call, and I was on a helicopter crew at the time. And so basically you have 2 minutes to get suited up and in the ship. You're like getting all your stuff on and running into the helicopter. So I remember shutting the door, and like rotors are turning and we're just about to lift off. And I was just like, I hope this thing crashes. That was my
Uh-huh.
thought. And I was like, because I just didn't know what to do. I was super suicidal. I just want to get out of this. Like I
Mm.
had been growing and healing, but that's just where I was. Like, I got to get out of this space. I can't do this anymore. And so at that moment, it's like I was learning how powerful my thoughts were. And I was just
Right.
like, I cannot be doing this to my brothers and sisters. I can't be thinking like this out here, because that's super dangerous. So
Yeah.
I would say to me, that was a big turning point of like, I need to get out.
Thank you for sharing all of that. Amazing. What sort of individuals do you work with? And is there a specific clientele that you focus on? I know you mentioned on the website as well, Huna Energy. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I am speaking with very little experience. Is that more of like the masculine energy, or
Mm.
does that apply to everybody? I was just
Yeah.
curious if you could give some
Yeah.
context.
Yeah. So I'll start with kind of I have worked with a lot of first responders and firefighters for a long time, and I've mostly worked with women for some reason. That's just the way it's been. And, for me, I love to work with men that are suffering in silence because that's who I was.
Yeah.
And so I'm really open to anybody. And the thing is that people that come to me usually have like, I've been going to the doctors, I've been going to therapy, I've been doing this for like 5 years and like nothing's working. And we're gonna get into like kind of this reverse model that you talked about, like
Mhm.
starting with the mind, right? And so what I'll say about the Huna stuff is that Huna is it means secret. Okay. So but if we actually go a deeper layer deeper, because the Hawaiian language is what I would say is there's like one word could have like five different meanings
Mhm.
depending on what maybe layer you're talking about. So Huna is kind of the first layer, but below that is Ho'omenaloa, which is to make mana or like to make energy expand, right? So
Mm.
it's qigong, energy work, like it's really energy work. It is coming from a very strong lineage from the Big Island, and actually there's 121 generations that the school I'm part of is connected to. So
Wow.
it's like Reiki, but there's way more lineage and protocol and chanting, and like we go a lot deeper than Reiki can. Reiki has like 5 symbols and we have 36. So there's just a lot more depth to Huna, but I would say the best way to describe it is like Hawaiian Reiki in a way.
And it applies to everyone then. So
Yeah.
no gender specificity,
Yeah.
which honestly in today's age is a silly question
Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like if you're
Absolutely.
in energy, everything is fluid, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
That's right. That's
Oh,
right.
interesting. Did you go to the Big Island to study this?
Yeah, I go there once or twice a year generally to go back to let's just call it Hawaiian Hogwarts because that's what it is. So
Oh, that's so
um
neat.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And stay there and study and work with, do you have mentors over there that
Um
oversees you?
like a teacher as a
Mhm.
lineage holder. And so the Huna it's like a 2-week workshop twice a year basically. And so there's about 200 to 150 people in the school. And so yeah, we have different levels, like there's 4 different levels. And so we have each time you go, there's something different. Like after level 4, you just keep going, and then we're just going to add in new teachers or bring in people in that teach astrology or tarot, or like start adding things to the Huna's work. And so yeah, we have like 2 weeks in workshop, but we also go to sacred sites on the island and
Wow.
connect with the land. And
Yeah.
we do hula, like traditional kahiko. So this is like ancient hula. We do a lot of ancient chanting, and so we're bringing the culture as much as possible. It's like we're keeping the culture alive. And, that was part of the ask of the elders that gave permission for this school to be around is to keep these teachings. And what they wanted more than anything, their vision from the elders was like, we want this energy to spread out throughout the world. We
Right.
want it to spread.
What are the pre-qualifications? Do you need to have a direct connection in lineage, Hawaiian
Uh,
roots?
no, not at
Can
all. Not at
anybody
all.
do it? Okay.
Absolutely. Anybody. Yeah. Anybody. Yeah. And it really comes to like a lot of people come through the NLP kind of doorway. That's how I
Okay.
found out about it because I was doing breakthrough sessions with people, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
all this energy stuff was happening. You start working with the unconscious mind. It's like, whoa, what is going on here?
Yes, and like you said, Western medicine does not support that. And
Yeah.
if you talk about it, many times I feel like that's an automatic referral to psychiatry, right? And
Yeah.
it's no, like
Yeah.
science is showing this connection, energy is real.
Yeah.
We can use science to show that there are these subatomic particles that are connected to everything and we can't see them. That doesn't mean it's not real, right? You can
Yeah.
feel it. You can
Yeah.
feel energy. Those of us that have done the work to get the clarity can see it, can hear it. So it's
Yeah.
so interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And so the Huna is really very focused on higher self, and like, you call it Alma Kua, but it's really like your higher self, right? And so maybe even Holy Spirit, very similar. So it's
Mhm.
like we pull in or call in the higher self through chanting, and then we do something called higher self therapy where we actually ask the unconscious mind to kind of light up all the baggage, if it's anger, fear, or events, like really connecting with the mind, body, spirit, like lighting it all up, and then having the higher self basically pull all that out. and
Wow.
install something new. And for me, a lot of my teachers are doctors of psychology, they're psychiatrists, and they're like, higher self therapy works every time on even the wildest stuff. It's like, that's what I've seen in my practice. And we're so blessed to have traditional Ho'oponopono and higher self therapy and all of these tools that, I guess just make sure I want to make sure I highlight just and honor the lineage here is like the way that it would be described as, in ancient times, you could be like a kahuna of canoe building. You could be a kahuna of like cooking, or like there's a kahuna of everything. And this specific school is like basically the teachers are like kahunas of psychology. So
Mhm.
it's ancient psychology, right? And so when the colonizers came to Hawaii originally, there wasn't disease, there was no like psychological issues, people, because they constantly did higher self therapy. They constantly did ho'oponopono. Like it's just a totally different way of looking at baggage and like transforming our negative emotions into energy.
I would love to get a link for that school as well for
Yeah.
people that wanted to do
Yeah.
more research on it. And then
Yeah.
to bring in as well the NLP and the mental and
Yeah.
emotional release. You talked that sometimes those go together, or did one preclude the other? I wasn't sure. Maybe you could give some background there on
Yeah.
how you got introduced and what that looks like when you're working with someone.
Yeah. Let's just talk about a breakthrough session, because I think that
Yeah,
will really help
I
marry
love I love
everything
it.
together.
Let's do
Yeah.
it.
And so a breakthrough is an 8-hour session, okay? And typically break it up into like four hours one day, 4 hours the next day, depending on the person's looking for. And so the NLP comes in, let's just break it down, neurolinguistic programming. The neuro is like our mind, our neurology, our senses, all these things. Linguistics is our language. In those two words, we're talking about how our words create pictures in our mind and how those pictures really create our state of being, our physiology. So, from an NLP perspective, the picture in your mind is worth a million hormones and chemical markers and all those things, as if your brain is decoding pictures in your mind into biochemistry. So, when we shift the pictures, we're shifting mind, body, spirit in so many different ways. So from a breakthrough session, or we're looking at how does their problem work. So that's more of an NLP perspective, right? Like we're going to do a detailed personal history, about 4 hours of talking through what's going on and looking at the programming. So neurolinguistic programming, what are your programs that you're running? What are the, like, how does your anxiety work? And know
Mhm.
step by step, how does it start? How does it get triggered? How do you run through it in your mind? What are the pictures? What are your beliefs? What are the emotions? Where did it come from? Like, so we spend this 3 or 4 hours using, basically NLP style questioning to come to a greater problem, the one core wound that's like connected to this whole area of life. And here's the greatest hits: I'm not good enough, I'm
Mm.
unlovable, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
The thing is that this process is the detailed personal history. The idea is that we're lighting up all of the neurology connected, all the stories, the events, the emotions, the beliefs, right? And then the next aspect of the breakthrough session. So this is where, we've done a lot of NLP mental work.
Mm.
Now, the next step is really letting all of that go, is release work. So we could use NLP techniques, which are a lot more mental, like parts integrations, like mental emotion release, which you could look at as like timeline therapy. So we're going to spend a couple hours, 2 or 3 hours, just doing release work, pretty trancy work, right? And then towards the end, it's all about going into the future and focusing on what you want and clearing anything out of the future timeline, and start installing literally pictures in the future timeline to rewire from a quantum perspective your timeline. You
Mm.
start dropping stuff from an NLP perspective. And then at that point, now it's action and focus. That person's just got to go out there and take action and focus and learn new things. And so where the Huna comes in is that release section where we're releasing things. We could do mental emotion release, which is super mental, or we could do higher self therapy, which is energetic. And it's
Oh, I
us,
see. Okay.
so they're really interchangeable. And I would say we're gonna do Ho'oponopono no matter what. We got to work on forgiveness, right? And we have other Huna techniques for parts integrations. It's just I always ask clients, like, do you want kind of like a therapeutic experience or do you want a ceremony? Because we can go, I can go all the way out. I'm going to dress like a shaman. I'll do that. I don't care. Or I can
Yeah.
be super scientific and very grounded. And it's
Mhm.
just, how do you want me to show up? Because to me, it's all the same thing.
Interesting. So spiritual or secular. So that way you can appeal to everyone. I think everyone can benefit from this
Yeah.
kind of work.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing below the surface is our medical providers, like our doctors and people in the front line that are very Western medicine science based, could really benefit from this kind of work as a way to tie in what they're experiencing in hospitals or in clinics or
Yeah.
seeing patients with the intangible side, the compassion fatigue, those default mode
Yeah.
networks that are running in the
Yeah.
background. Like, I have imposter syndrome or I have anxiety. I'm not doing
Yeah.
enough to help these people. Do
Uh,
you do this only in person or do you offer Zoom, like virtual meetings as well? What's your preferred model?
Yeah, both actually, it's all the same. And it's interesting because the Zoom is so like fifth element or trancy or like ether, right? So it's really, to me, there's no difference. In person is great, but over Zoom, I do a lot of virtual sessions. And I just want to reflect on what you were talking about is there's a lot of people in my crowd in this world, this school that I'm in, a lot of people are medical doctors, a lot of people are psychiatrists and, I'm not going to necessarily work with cancer. I'm not going to go there. But these people that are medical doctors, they will. And
Yeah.
using these tools along with other therapy, physical and whichever way the person wants to go, like there's some very powerful work being done from a medical perspective on this stuff. And I'll just share one story here where I had a client come to me with like extreme back pain. She's like, it's been like 6 months, almost a year. I literally, it's getting to the point where I can't really walk. Like the cortisone shots aren't working. The doctors don't know what's wrong with me. There's nothing on the scans. I'm like, okay, well, let's get into the energy. Let's see. And as I talked to her more, it came out that when this first started, she was moving and she kind of tweaked her back a little bit, but she was moving from this house that she like loved. Like she was in love with this house. And so it came to me, I just intuitive hit like, oh, we need to cut the cords to the house and do some ho'oponopono forgiveness. Like you didn't really talk to the house and let it know like why you were leaving, like you were invested in this relationship. So we did this forgiveness process where we basically just asked for forgiveness both ways. We did it with the house, which is a little different. Usually it's people or loved ones or so we cut the cords to the house with this process, and within a couple weeks, she's walking again. All of her pain is gone. She's like, I going to the chiropractor less. I'm doing like,
Uh,
and within a couple months, she's like, it's just gone. Like,
well,
oh my God. And I've seen that with Ho'oponopono more than once, where it's this resentment that we're holding on to. It's that cord that we're connected to somebody, to that event. And so this is how a lot of times like these energetic cords or resentments or negative emotions impact our body. It's like an internal stress. Yeah. Yeah.
would this be an example of how the unconscious mind is at play? Or do you feel that this is less unconscious mind, more energetic? How would you delineate? Yeah, I'm curious
Yeah,
there.
yeah. So typically, I think this is the best way I like to explain it is that we have three minds and four bodies. This is like a Huna perspective. So different cultures are going to look at it differently. But the three minds would be our conscious mind, our unconscious, and our higher self. Or Jung would call it the collective unconscious. So the idea is that our conscious mind speaks to our unconscious, and that our unconscious mind speaks to our higher self
Hmm.
and that there's this cord from unconscious mind to higher self that it gets really muddy with all of these deep beliefs you know from whatever from school, from church, from life, right? We have
Yeah.
all these beliefs that are accumulating in unconscious mind, and as we clear limiting beliefs and negative emotions, this cord to higher self, this connection gets clearer and clearer. We become more of a clear channel. And so this allows, our life force energy to come into the body because this is just my perspective. I haven't heard a ton of people talk about it necessarily, but I think the body and the unconscious mind are the same. That's just what I've seen with people. I really think it's one and the same. And that there's this idea of mind body energy connection, and it's all
Mhm.
actually one thing.
No one has mentioned that, but when you said it, I'm thinking, yes, autonomic nervous system, our subconscious mind and our body are completely working as one versus our conscious mind
Yeah.
and the prefrontal cortex, what we're thinking and our reasoning and our planning versus the systems that are just constantly running in the background.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Oh,
Yeah.
I think I completely agree with you.
Yeah. And so our four bodies is like our spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. And of course, every culture is going to have a different take on that. But basically, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, it's this trickle down effect. And the best way I think about it is, like the Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd album, where it's like this light going through this prism and this rainbow coming out the other side, right? To me, we're connected to spiritual energy and then it's coming through the mental and emotional bodies. And it's supposed to show up as a rainbow in our body or our organs from a Chinese perspective or our chakras from an Indian perspective.
Okay.
The thing is that those mental and emotional blocks, they kind of blur up the lens. The light isn't showing up the best way possible. So this is what we call, from an NLP perspective or Huna perspective, is like this trickle down effect where the energy just isn't coming down to the body properly. Now, in that, I would come at from like a Bruce Lipton idea in epigenetics where like 99% of things is stress related. And then it all starts in the mind, but the mind is so powerful, it's going to create this thing in the body. And so
Yes.
we'd have to deal with that, So it's not that the spiritual energy is going to just overcome everything in the body. It's that we need to just clear the channel so you can heal. And then, are you going to go a naturopathic route? What are you going to do from a physical level? And oftentimes I feel like the biggest thing is like changing your environment and lifestyle. Like holistic wellness is just, you get the body in a state that it wants to heal and you get the person into an environment that is helpful for them. They're going to make all the changes very quickly on top of other things. Yeah. Does that make sense? Does that answer your
Yeah,
question?
it does. I had never thought of that connection with the body and the subconscious mind, having done a lot of this sort of work on
Yeah.
myself in the
Yeah.
past.
What's so interesting is what I've seen so many times as we do this like higher self therapy or mental emotional release breakthrough session, right? Is that like I've seen somebody have a detox rash almost immediately. That's happened before.
Oh, wow.
And these people, a lot of time, not a lot of times, but there's times when, especially if we work on something physical, like for instance, let's see, like, somebody like specifically working with like Candida. Candida actually, from a mental emotional perspective, is actually having intercourse when you really don't want to, like over and over again, like in a
Oh.
marriage, right? And so there's a lot of baggage with that. And so when we release that baggage, the Candida can actually clear, but you need to do all the protocols to help that. And so the body may actually go through a pretty strong healing process or detox, and like your body's going to go through, your unconscious mind just changed, which means your body just changed. So now there's like this cellular upgrade that's happening. And I'm sure you've had other guests talk about that where like, yeah, you
Yeah.
might have like these, I don't know, people call it a million different things, but your body's going to go through a process.
Yeah, I've heard it described. I've experienced it. Some people
Yeah,
describe it like a flu or
exactly.
like this,
Yeah.
like the worst hangover of their life. You just feel purged and exhausted, but then you
Yeah.
build back from that.
Yeah.
So you're doing all of this work on the subconscious mind with somebody in one of these breakthrough sessions. They may or may not have an immediate response. What does the timeline look following? What is the integration? I think is what I'm asking about. The integration period
Yeah.
following one of these breakthrough sessions. Could you describe that?
Yeah, I would say one of my gifts, I would say God gave me this gift, is that people have mystical experiences with me pretty commonly. And so they have a message from God or Jesus or something happens, or like, I became the light. I was like, yeah, I know.
If
All
you're
right.
get mine.
Yeah, right. So anyway, so people have these mystical experiences. And so I would say the integration process is actually very similar to like plant medicine and those kinds of things, where the brain goes in, or actually the whole body is going to go into this like neurogenesis. And so I always tell people like, okay, the next 6 to 12 weeks, like you want to be reading books, you want to be like watching great podcasts, you want to just download all this great material, right? And top of taking action, focus. And what I mean by that, there's a very specific process called an avatar aim SMART goal document, where you're writing about maybe like your future self in about 5 to 7 years. Like, what does that look like spiritually? What does that look like mentally, emotionally, physically? Like getting really detailed, getting the language really, really clear. And then your aim, which is kind of like, this is, I'm pointing my arrow at this is what I'm doing. And then some smart goals that are like, hey, I'm going to knock this out. Like, here's my 6 month kind of phase. Here's my year. So a very clear, big picture, all the way down to very specific. What are you going to do? And how are you going to do it? And then we actually, that might take some time to write it all out and get it nice and perfect. And at that point, we're actually going to do a hypnosis to basically install all of that stuff in the unconscious mind. So it just kind of happens naturally for the person. And we drop it into the future timeline. And the integration, a lot of times it comes down to environment and setting boundaries. Like those things, sometimes people are like, I got to cut this person out of my life. I do give people a lot of homework. And sometimes, I'll be very honest, sometimes the homework is really gritty. You're like, oh, you're going to have to leave your job. For you to like truly heal from this, you're going to have to do this thing. That's like that. That's just what it is. So the integration that doesn't show up very often, but I've seen that before. Like, you're going to have to get out of this thing. So environment, boundaries, and holistic wellness and energy, like go out in nature, get in the elements, like find peace, come into your heart, meditation, all that holistic wellness coaching that just I have in my back pocket. So
Interesting. I appreciate that you share that example of leaving the job or making radical changes in the environment. A couple of things. I did a whole podcast episode in season 1 about predictive processing, which is exactly what you're describing, how your perception of your reality becomes your reality. So what you're thinking is happening is really all that matters when everything's said and done. We don't have to be victims of our thoughts. We definitely can influence what we choose to believe or not believe. Setting that subconscious mind in the right space. And with that means we pick up parts of our environment and the people closest to us, and there's constant energy exchange.
yeah.
And if it's not a nurturing, safe environment, and safe can mean many different things to different people, then you're not going to reach those goals that you set for yourself. So I really appreciate that you will say that to somebody like, hey, you need to do this. Like, this is going to be hard work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But why would you waste your time, right? Being anything but authentic. You're not going to sugarcoat it for people.
Yeah. It's, that's to me, I think the boundaries, like, especially for men, like setting boundaries with their partners or with other like women in their life is so hard because I think a lot of men tend to freeze and be like, I'm just going to go her way to like be, make it easy, right? I'm just going to make it easy right now. And then we just kind of lose this like polarity of masculine, feminine in relationships or in the way we interact. And it just really, to me, that's one of the hardest things is setting those boundaries and stepping into that role, because that's one of the big things about the end of a breakthrough session is like, well, let's talk about the doubters, because you're going to go right back into an environment that has a whole bunch of doubters on this. And how are you going to deal with that? How are you going to deal with the boss that's like, yeah, whatever, you didn't change it, nothing, right?
Yeah.
Like, actually, I'm a different person now. And so there's this talking about the integration, I guess from a spiritual perspective, is kind of, because you mentioned it like your reality, where like our unconscious mind is taking on like 20 million bits of information per second. It's like this wild, incoherent amount of information, but our unconscious mind filters it through our values, our beliefs, our emotions, like all these experiences. Then we have this, we're aware of 126. We go from 20 million to 126. So we delete, we distort, we generalize just about everything. So from a breakthrough session, Huna perspective, we're changing this 126 bits. We're just changing the perspective, and energetically, we're collapsing that old reality and you're stepping into a new one.
Yeah.
And you're going to be kind of in the void for a little while. And that's where you got to do the work. You got to just keep going and going. Like, where do I want to go? And you got to open that next reality and walk through it. And that's the work. And, the integration is super important.
And that liminal space that you're describing is what's so hard for us to sit in. It's like, I either want to be in the past or the future, but not right here.
Right. And, you look at Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, it's like, that's what they're doing. You're going into the quantum and collapsing everything and creating something new. Right. So this is the process. It's from a Huna perspective, we call it the fifth element, we call it
Mm.
Keave. It's a source, but it's that quantum realm of infinite possibilities of all that is. Like every tradition talks about that, right?
Everyone.
We just call it the fifth element.
Yeah.
It just is part of, so we're just stepping into that fifth element and asking source for a new reality at the end of the day.
I like that. A couple more questions that came up while we were talking. You mentioned plant medicine. Do you work with plant medicine in your practice, or is that outside of your realm? And I also had a question about sacred plants and ceremonies.
Yeah.
It was that if that
Yeah.
was something that you incorporated.
Yeah, when I work in person, I do work with hape, which is a tobacco snuff. And then I also work with sananga as well, which is like eye drops, which is basically like pouring jalapenos in your eyes. Oh yeah, it's pretty gnarly. It's pretty gnarly.
Okay, I've never heard of either. Okay,
Okay, yeah.
interesting.
So these are both like Amazonian medicines, right? They come from that space. And I've done a fair amount of retreat work down in Mexico with first responders and, ayahuasca and all those things. Like I've done that work and there's places for that. I think with severe PTSD, especially like, oh, what do you call it? Traumatic brain injuries and stuff like that, or really severe depression like that, those plant medicines might be really important because the brain is a transducer is the best way I can explain it, like a TV antenna of consciousness. And so if it's damaged, like you may not be able to connect your unconscious mind very well. That's just not going to work.
Yep.
So we need to heal the brain first and then maybe do something. And so that's where I've seen the combinations of this work actually do some amazing things for PTSD and like helicopter survivors and people that have gone through a lot. Yes, I've worked in that space, and I think there's most importantly is that there's a lot of YouTube shamans, and so if there's not a lineage, then I would stay away because it's very dangerous work if it's not done very properly. With, for instance, in our retreats, we might spend like 3 hours with intention and prayer before we even like go into something. Okay,
before you start an actual ceremony, with any kind of plant medicine.
Exactly. There's a lot that goes into it. So yeah, hopefully that
So
answers your question.
yes, listeners, make sure you do your research, find somebody who is in the lineage and not just has a YouTube channel that promises you a wild trip, because that may not be what you want to sign up for.
Right.
The type of people that come and find you, or the clientele you find yourself working with, do people usually come to you because they have an issue that isn't being resolved by other means? Have you ever had someone come to you and be like, I just want to see what's on the other side for me. I don't necessarily have an issue, not really sure where to start. Would you be able to work with somebody like that as well?
Yeah. Oh, that's a beautiful question. For some reason, people with a lot of trauma have come to me. Like I've done all these.
Because you're a healer. Yes.
Right. It's like I've done all of these things, and I have to be careful how I say this. I would say like a lot of people say I've been in therapy for like 10 years and like I feel worse, right? It's like, okay, so yeah, maybe I can help you. Let's check it out, right? Let's talk about it. So, and then let's see, I don't know why women with sexual trauma they just show up all the time. Like, okay, like I've done a lot of work with that, a lot of work, very powerful, a lot of resolution, mentally, physically, emotionally, all of it. And then for people that are like, I just want to open my gifts, I think I have a really great story about this. So, and it's not quite that person. It's like, I just want to see. It's more this person was struggling with like, I'm just hearing voices, and that like everybody says I'm schizophrenic and I'm crazy. And most of the time I'd be like, I don't work with schizophrenia. That's just that's a whole physical level. I'm not going to go there. But this person was like, but this person said I'm schizophrenic, and then this other doctor said I wasn't. And so I'm just confused, but I'm like hearing these voices. And so I was like, let me read your energy. I was like, oh, you're a medium. Duh. Okay.
Oh, that poor person.
I
right?
know, because they thought like I'm just a crazy person. And so it took a lot of like, it took a breakthrough session and other traditions and some other like medicine experiences for her to break through to understand those voices were actually, they were dead people. And like all of the time, they're like narrating her life. But why I bring this up is because she had to become a clear channel to harmonize that gift and to step into it, where I think the people that are like, I just kind of want to check it out, this isn't light work, like not
Mm,
as in this isn't like obviously it's light as an energy work, but it's like not it's not lighthearted, man. This is
mhm.
work.
Yeah,
This is like if anybody's gone through a psychedelic experience, that you get put through the meat grinder for 8 hours. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so it's not on that level, but like this is strong work. I
Mhm.
don't really work with Taurus.
That's like shadow work in a way. Would you define it as that, or is that
I
too
think
labely?
no, that makes sense, because we're working with, traditionally in a breakthrough session, we're gonna release anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, and we're gonna get to the root cause. So a lot of time that's yeah, it's deeper in the ancestral bloodlines or
Mhm.
in your ancestry or genealogical or past life. And that doesn't always show up. Sometimes it's in the womb, which that's super common, like during
Oh,
birth
wow.
trauma, super
Okay.
common. So it is shadow work, and that we're gonna go into like, yeah, we're going into like the really heavy stuff that you've never even seen before. Cause
Mhm.
that's where the problem is. That's
Mhm.
where the problem is. Like you haven't solved the problem because you haven't been able to get there yet. That's why you've come to me, because nobody can help you see your problem, which means we do have to go, yeah, it's
Have
deep
to go
work.
deep.
We
Yeah.
gotta go deep, gotta
Mhm.
go deep. And that's the power of it though.
And that's where the lasting change comes on the other
Yep.
side.
Yeah.
Wow. So, in closing, I can't believe it's already been almost an hour. This second season for the listeners is all about lifestyle optimization,
Mm,
walking that authentic path,
mm,
going outside of set channels to expand awareness, whether that's healing of any of the modalities, right? Any of these pillars, mind, body, and spirit. So, if you were to choose one key takeaway from our discussion today that you would recommend to the listeners, like this is the key point, this is the starting ground,
mm.
what would it be and why?
Yeah, I would say, well, can I say a couple? Because there's a
Of
couple that
course, please, this is your
I,
platform. Let's hear it.
yeah, I think the first point I always invite people to come to is this idea that there's this cause and effect in the universe, right? Even from a physics perspective, we've heard of this. And yet everything in our mind has a cause and effect. And so we kind of need to come to the other side of the equation. We're like, wait a minute, I think I'm causing this problem. I think I'm creating this problem. And when we come back to cause, that's the number one thing. We got to be a cause of like, wow, I created the way I reacted to that. I did create this baggage when I was 1 year old. I don't know why, but I created the baggage. Like, and so sometimes for people that have been through a lot of trauma, like this is a hard thing to get to. And so I think it is the foundational most important piece is I'm causing the problem. I'm causing the interpretation of it.
Mm,
And the second that's really important is that you're in charge of your mind, therefore your reality.
mm,
That's it. We come back to cause. I'm in charge of my mind, therefore my results, my reality, my physiology. Like I'm in charge of this. And that it's all, yeah, here we go. It's all in my mind,
mm.
right? All
Yeah.
of it. Everything is mental. From a hermetic perspective, everything is mental. So on top of all of that, go out and get some sun, get the elements like water, fire, earth, air, all those things. I think those three things will absolutely change your life.
No, I love that there's not space for a victim mentality. You
Yeah,
have the power and it's
yeah,
all in here.
yeah, yeah.
And
And, it all comes from, it's going to sound silly in some ways, but for me, my father always told me, you can do anything you put your mind to. And it's
Mhm.
like, wow, that really shaped my life. Like, thanks. Thank you for that one, because that is one of the beliefs that I do carry still, and yeah, you can do anything you put your mind to. It's just a matter of really buckling down and focusing and taking action in a lot of
Mhm.
ways.
Yeah, doing the work. Oh,
Mhm.
great. Thomas, where can people find out more about you and your services?
Yeah, absolutely. So Instagram and my website, Facebook. Facebook is Thomas Wurm. My website. We're actually going through like a mind change or a name change a little bit. It's just Mountain Mind Mastery. If
Mhm.
you go to Mountain Mind Tricks, it will take you there as well.
Okay.
So that's Instagram, the website. I do have some books on Amazon, so you can just
Oh,
search up
great.
Thomas Wurm. So
Yeah. Oh,
you'll
we didn't
find
even get a
some.
chat about your
Yeah,
books.
yeah, there's some books there. So,
Okay.
yeah, I run a weekly men's group if people are interested in that, and there's definitely some retreats, and there's a lot of stuff coming through. And obviously, the one-on-one breakthrough sessions are just so
Mhm.
powerful for folks. So,
That seems like
yeah,
a really good place to start. And website's the best place to go find more for that.
absolutely,
Okay.
yep. Yep. Yep.
Great. Well, I will make sure that I include all of those links in the show notes. Thank you so incredibly much for your time and your energy and all of the wisdom that you shared
Mm,
today. This has been
yeah.
such a pleasure. Thank you,
Oh,
Thomas.
thank you so much for having me, and it's been a blessing. Thank you.
I love listener feedback, an always welcome question. You can reach me at vanessa@squatsandseances.com or on social media at Squats and Seances. I am on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Please subscribe to the show on your favorite listening or viewing platform of choice and leave me a review. Lastly, check out my website at squatsandseances.com and sign up for my newsletter. Until the next time, may you continue to live well, embrace authenticity, question everything, and of course, stay gritty.